Well, what a week. I've had a lot on my mind. There has been a lot in the news. Charlie Kirk. I've been thinking about it a lot. Personally, I've had a lot going on. This week is the 1 year anniversary of publishing Rebirth of a Nation. And so I've been thinking about, what does all of this mean? And I've had some thoughts. It got me thinking back to last year. And on September 10th of last year, Harris debates Trump. And it seems like our nation may just choose to go in a different direction. And then, last week, I learned a new name. The name of Charlie Kirk. And I took time to really mourn the violence in our nation. I mourned his death. And then I took the time to listen to what he actually had to say. Long segments. And it made me mourn Charlie's life. Because what happens with Charlie Kirk is nothing new. It is a repeat of what has happened in American history. Charlie would go to college campuses and he would try to recruit young men into the MAGA movement who feel like they have been sidelined in American life. And he would start quoting out a lot of statistics about Black America and the realities of Black America. And he would frame his conversation to make the argument that America is the least racist nation in the world. That sounds interesting. So what did he say when he was on college campuses? He would highlight over and over that Black America only makes up 13% of the American population. And then he would say, but despite making 13% of the population, they make up the majority of the prison population. Now that is flatly untrue. That is a false stat. As Garrison Hayes highlights, Black America represents 38% of the prison population, and white America represents 57% of the prison population. So why is he making up stats? Well, he will make up stats in order to make his arguments more powerful. And when you look at his arguments, he would say in the least racist nation in the world, this is what is happening. Black people are being left behind because of their own failures. He will say that it is not the crimes of the past. It's not slavery, it's not Jim Crow, it's not public policies today. That what is really facing Black America is a problem with Black culture, a problem with Black criminality, a problem with Black dads. And I find his arguments very interesting. And I wonder, where does he learn this? How much time did he spend in Black communities to understand what Black problems are? Well, it turns out he didn't spend any time. And yet what we have to understand with Charlie Kirk and the propaganda that he has produced, as well as the propaganda from the past, is that it has depended upon not knowing Black people or Black communities. That Charlie Kirk's arguments only make sense to those who are not intimately engaged in the fight for racial justice. Only to those who are outside of Black communities. So when he starts making a reference of Black people being more criminal because they are overrepresented in the prison population, this is not a new argument. They have been saying this time and time again. And yet, if what he says is not new, neither is what he is leaving out. He doesn't talk about the fact that research shows that white people use drugs just a tiny bit more than black folks. And yet, black folks are overrepresented in the prison population. Not only do white folks use drugs just a little bit more, they are just as likely to be in the business of dealing drugs as African Americans. And yet, Charlie Kirk leaves this out. He will talk about how on murder convictions, 58% of murder convictions in America are of black people. And yet what he edits out is the reality that the most likely person to have their conviction overturned is black men. Because we charge black men and we convict them despite their innocence. And so as I'm learning about Charlie's work and what he gave his life to, only became more sad as I watched how people were responding. Some were sick enough to respond by celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which means they have allowed hate to take up residence in their heart. And I don't want my heart to be a home for hate. But just as dangerous is what I saw with white folks who tried to make Charlie Kirk a martyr, tried to sanitize his history, and not tell the truth about the work that he was about and what he was doing. And then I watched on Sunday as Charlie Kirk was memorialized in a huge spectacle. And I knew exactly what I was seeing. You know, unlike Charlie, unlike the folks that have gathered in Arizona, I have lived and worked in black communities and immigrant communities for almost 20 years there. And I know history in a very different way now. And what I've learned in these communities is that history matters. So what history matters in light of Sunday's spectacle? Well, I'm so glad that you asked, because it is a repeat of a previous spectacle in our nation's history. And behind that spectacle was another propaganda man whose messages were eerily similar to Charlie Kirk's. Charlie Kirk's says that black people are more criminal. So did this propaganda man. Charlie Kirk says that dads and sexuality among black men, there's something wrong with. And so did this propaganda man. Charlie Kirk tries to highlight his argument that black people were better in segregation. This propaganda man said that black people were better during the era of slavery. Charlie Kirk was a friend with the president. So too was this propaganda man. And wrapping it all together was a very particular vision of Christianity, both for Charlie Kirk and for this propaganda man. He wrote best-selling novels. He produced blockbuster movies. In fact, his name is Thomas Dixon, and he produced Birth of a Nation. Now, why is this important? Well, it was Birth of a Nation that relaunched the Ku Klux Klan, spreading white terrorism across our nation. The Klan had died, it had essentially disappeared, but Thomas Dixon brought it back. And what is important to know is that both Charlie Kirk and Thomas Dixon are masters of propaganda. Propaganda matters, and it has power. This moment in our nation matters, but we must remember that we too have power. Ida B. Wells taught us a great lesson. She says the way that you right wrongs is to simply shine the light of truth upon them. And the power of truth has not been lost. And it is the only antidote to the propaganda that we see. My name is Joel Edward Goza, and I would love for you to join me on this journey by following my Substack, Notes from an Outsider, as I discuss the work that is before us as parents, as communities, as people who desire to create a more perfect union. And the work that I do on my Substack is the work that I see inherent in the work of reparations, the work of repentance, the work of repayment, the work of repair. Because this work has lost none of its power.